This is Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council, Tech Vibe Radio, as it says here on my shirt, hanging out with Comcast to tell our 50 summer stories of Pittsburgh tech. And part of our jam doing this is finding the companies that are just kicking butt, but you don't necessarily know that they're out there. And we're glad they're out there because the solutions they're providing, the things they're doing, are literally keeping us safe every day. And such is the case with FLIR. And these guys, they have this awesome tagline. I got to start with this because I think this just kind of puts this capstone on it, where it's like they call themselves like they want to be the world's sixth sense. And that to me is just so powerful because they are detecting things that are harmful to us every day. And I think every day they're saving lives. It's as simple as that. And today we're talking to Jeremy Walker. Jeremy, thanks for hanging out with us. You're in Pittsburgh, up there at the U Park, hanging out. And I see you're a Penn State fan back there, which I think is pretty cool.
I am, yeah. That's not so subtle, I guess. Penn State fan, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. You work for one of the most fascinating, coolest companies in Pittsburgh, and I'm betting a lot of our viewers and listeners may not know a whole lot about you guys because you guys have to be quiet. I mean, you're working with the government here to help keep us safe, and so you got to keep it on the hush hush sometimes. But today you're allowed to talk and tell us a little bit about what you guys are up to. So thanks for being here. And first off, what's your background, real fast? What do you do, and what's your position with FLIR?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, first off, thanks for having us. And you're right that not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know we're here. We've been here for a long time. So this site actually is a sort of a biotech site. So we focus on chemical and biological weapons of mass destruction, or WMD detection. So that's chemical warfare agents like nerve agents, sulfur mustard, toxic industrial chemicals, and then bio, right? So that can be either naturally occurring or engineered biological threats. So anthrax, a lot of viral threats that could either be deployed or under the, sort of the current circumstances we're under, where there's just sort of some pandemic that arises because some virus has jumped out of an animal into people and it's spread around the world, right? So we do quite a bit of government work, DOD, DHS type of stuff. But to explain my role, so we have a group within FLIR that is called detection, CBRN, Chem, Bio, Rad, Nuke, Explosives, CBRNE detection.
Jeez, that sounds serious, man.
Yeah, so we kind of have a portfolio where we're basically trying to detect anything that can harm you, right? And at any given point in time in the world, there's different actors. A lot of people are aware of some of the terrorist groups and your ISIS and Taliban's, but then you have state actors, right? And so that could be like North Korea or Russia or Syria, and they span the whole sort of spectrum of all those sort of classes of threats, right? And so we've got basically 4 sites that develop technologies to try to detect all those things, both for the Department of Defense that's operating in theater in some of those places, but also for sort of, Homeland Security. So DHS, and then some of our Army, National Guard units that actually function to protect us domestically from a lot of those threats. So my job, it's kind of a unique job within FLIR. FLIR's more broadly this about $2 billion, largely known by the public as a thermal imaging company, right? And it's about half commercial and half Department of Defense. And so that commercial side of the business is really focused on infrared technology, so thermal, and then just things beyond what the eye can see. And then my group really does a little bit of that stuff in surveillance, but then mostly we focus on lots of other types of detectors. So like I mentioned, biotech, it plays a big role, radiation detection, portable field analytical instrumentation, sensor arrays that detect explosives and drugs, radar, acoustic sensors. So just, that whole sort of theme of what's on the 5 senses, right? The 6th sense of the world, the infrared plus all the other stuff. So that really is sort of the goal of FLIR to really help enhance, your perceptual awareness of what's around you, because particularly when you're in danger from some of these kinds of threats. So
Mhm.
my job is to really oversee all of the new innovation that goes on in the company, and particularly in the business unit related to detecting these things. So I'm director of science and technology. So I kind of wear two hats. I really sort of oversee all the early stage stuff that's going on within this group. And then I spend a good deal of my time doing business development with the government agencies that are really the ones that sort of go out and solicit the technology that they want. And so I spend quite a bit of time talking to program managers from agencies like the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, or DTRA, DARPA, DHS, Army Research Office. So there's, anywhere between sort of 6 and 8 groups that we work very closely with to try to seed new technology and develop it, and then get it in the hands of the warfighter.
That's a lot of stuff, and I think people need to know that the Pittsburgh presence of FLIR is based on Agentes, which was founded back in 1999, a spinoff from the University of Pittsburgh, which is really cool. And the fact that they were scooped up by FLIR, I think, is just amazing, because it shows you, man, that the solutions that Agentes was working on were pretty heavy duty stuff. I know recently you guys were just awarded like a almost $22 million contract based on some of that Agentes technology to help for nerve agent discovery, or just disclosure spray, which is a fancy way of saying you spray stuff on something to see if there's like nerve agent or any sort of harmful materials or things like that on equipment and clothing and things, which I think is just, like I said, saving lots of people's lives. So that's just so cool to me.
Yeah. So yeah, the company spun out of Pitt in '99, was acquired by a company called ICX Technologies in 06, shortly before I joined. So
Okay.
I actually got my PhD in chemistry at Pitt, and joined the company in 2006, and I've been here ever since. And in 2010, we were acquired by FLIR. Yeah, and so this particular site has really been focused on what we like to call advanced enzymology. So an enzyme is a protein, and more or less every living thing's got enzymes inside it, and they sort of govern or catalyze a lot of different biochemical reactions in your body. So a lot of your physiological reactions are modulated or governed by enzymes to make certain things happen. And so sort of the most poignant example in the program you mentioned that we won and are now in full rate production, sort of the number one example for us is nerve agents. If you just look back in the last 4 or 5 years of world history, right? You got the Syrian nerve agent poisoning that killed a lot of people. Right. You have Kim Jong-un assassinating his brother in, I think, in a Malaysian airport, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, video footage of it. See him getting hugged by those 2 women, and
exactly. And then you got the the Russian assassination attempt that went on over in Salisbury in the UK. That was a big one.
I forgot about that. That was scary, man.
That's probably the biggest and most recent one. And certainly, whether it's a state actor or non-state actor, the threat of nerve agent poisoning, particularly that UK case where these were some fairly sophisticated and advanced nerve agents, right? So that's an ever-present threat. And our technology sort of lends itself very well to helping the military and domestic responders be able to combat those types of threats. So the way the sensor works is there's an enzyme in your body that really modulates all of your neuromuscular activity. So when your nerve sends an impulse to your muscle, to basically fire, right, or act, there's a chemical called acetylcholine at that neuromuscular junction, and there's an enzyme called acetylcholinesterase that basically breaks down that signal so that it essentially resets that junction, and so
that's the nerve agent, so it loses that connection, so you can stop.
Exactly. So when you get poisoned by a nerve agent, that nerve agent shuts off that enzyme. It's like a lock and key kind of mechanism. So it shuts it off, and the binding affinity is like really, really high. So it's like super super lethal, right? And so when that happens, you get all these really nasty, nasty sort of physiological effects that we've all sort of read about or seen in the media.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
if you don't
terrible.
get a really rapid intervention, ultimately that leads to, a fatal outcome. And so the ability to detect these things and very sensitively on surfaces is kind of where we specialized early on. And so we have been working with the government, a number of agencies, but probably most closely with DTRA, to develop this chemistry that uses enzymes to basically detect these things very sensitively, and then it drives these color changes. And so the idea is I could spray a surface and it goes on to, say, a tank or a Humvee,
Okay.
and it would be yellow. And if there's a nerve agent present, pretty quickly, within a minute or two, it turns red. And so that shows the warfighter right where the
Don't
contamination is.
touch the tanks; they're
And,
red.
and even more importantly, they can spray it with a decontaminant, so like an oxidizer or something, bleach or other types of chemistries. And so they can get rid of it, keep it from spreading, clean up the vehicle. And then typically, if you're in that kind of scenario, you're probably in a situation where your combat readiness has got to be pretty high. So the ability to do that very quickly, clean it up,
Yeah,
minimize everybody's exposure so that nobody gets sick or spreads it, and then
absolutely.
get back to the fight is paramount, right?
That's
So,
absolutely paramount. But does it leave a nice fresh pine scent afterwards?
yeah, well, maybe it could be a future version of the product.
Tradition, because we want a nice clean scent after we know there's no nerve agent on there or the nerve agent
Right,
cleaned up.
right,
See,
yeah.
that's what I find just amazing is that this is the type of thing being developed here, like in Pittsburgh, that is being deployed, on the front lines. It's saving, all our soldiers' lives, everyone's lives, because like I said, more and more of these types of things are happening when it comes to these types of nerve agent attacks. And I just find that amazing. And it's here in Pittsburgh, but the FLIR has this. So how many folks are in FLIR's offices in Pittsburgh?
Well, so actually, FLIR, I want to say, is somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people worldwide.
Right, it's huge. Exactly, it's
We
massive.
actually have two offices in the Pittsburgh area,
Okay.
that actually came to FLIR by separate acquisition. So the office that I sit in Harmer is only about 20 people. So
Okay.
it's pretty small. It's very research and development focused.
Yeah. Yeah. It's heavy duty stuff, right?
We have a lot of people with bachelor's and master's and PhDs coming out of like the chemistry and biology and biochemistry space. So it's a really R&D heavy site. And then there's actually a second site a little bit further north of us that is a manufacturing site out in Freeport.
Yeah.
So we're both like along the Route 28 corridor.
Exactly. Yeah. You're right in the valley, the Allegheny Valley there. So.
Yeah, and so the Freeport site actually does precision optics manufacturing for a lot of our infrared technology. So these really sophisticated, what they call gimbals, that go on like helicopters and airplanes that either help them with navigation or help them with surveillance. So you've probably seen a lot of those videos where like some guy's running from the cops and they've
Yeah, you can see the heat sinks of the person running through the woods.
Yeah, that wouldn't be possible without like precision optics and lenses that have to go into that, and that's what the site up in Freeport works in. So they're in a different business group than us,
Okay.
but again, at the same time, they're really serving the same purpose. We're really trying to protect people from bad actors, right?
The sixth sense, man. It's all about being that sixth sense that you guys keep talking about. And you see it all coming together, and Pittsburgh's playing a big part in that as far as it goes. So I know you don't know, I mean, we can't talk too depth about this, but I think it's something that people need to know about, because I think, FLIR's on the front lines of temperature sensing, right? And that's just paramount right now with the COVID thing. Tell us what's happening in that area, if you can. Anything in particular you can let us know about.
Oh yeah, so that one's a little easier to talk about. It's
Okay.
not really sort of defense or national security related, but as people are aware, and if you watch sort of a lot of the financial news channels and your MSNBCs and CNNs and stuff, it's all over the news. The bigger company specializes in thermography or reading temperature, really, right? And there's a lot of commercial markets for that, but since the COVID pandemic has blown up, one of the tools that are available to screen people are using thermal cameras to read people's what we call elevated skin temperature. So it's not diagnosing. It's not saying that
Right.
somebody is sick with something, but what
Right.
it's doing is just kind of detecting that that person might have a fever.
Mhm.
And in that case, you should pull them aside for sort of secondary screening. And that's
Exactly.
where
Right.
some sort of,
Yeah.
like one of these diagnostic assays might be performed. So it's really meant to just sort of screen people who might have a fever. And so it's being adopted in a lot of airports, a lot of secure buildings. So it's been in the press that we've done some deals with some really large auto manufacturers and people with very large warehouse facilities and manufacturing facilities in the United States, as well as a lot of Department of Defense installations. So that's pretty well publicized. So it's sort of this this technology that is being used to is sort of a first layer of a defense to make sure that people who might be ill aren't getting into those places where then they're exposed to large populations of people and they can spread illness. So
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, like I say, it's that first line of defense. Just if someone's showing a temperature, you got to at least have them just checked out, just to make sure that could be something that could be spread to a lot of other people. And like I said, everything you guys do is about keeping people safe. And that's what I think
yeah,
is
and
really cool about you guys.
it's kind of interesting because for this group, like I said, we early on we specialize in wanting to detect biological threats, so bacteria and viruses. And so the thermal, as you know, with people with COVID, right, they don't always present symptomatically to begin with. So they can be transmitters or spreaders and maybe not have a fever, not have the
Right.
cough, right, and some of the other symptoms. And so more sophisticated approaches to detecting signs of infection are needed. And so that's another effort that this site here in Pittsburgh actually is working on.
Huh.
We've got some really innovative new approaches to trying to detect viruses and bacteria in the environment. And so I think most
Wow.
people know that sort of the classical technique is taking a sample and then doing what's called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. But that's, as we see right now, that's a process that you send samples back to a lab and there's significant backups.
It takes time. Yeah, we hear the backups we hear about right now all the time, like 10 days to find out if you are
Yeah.
infected or not.
So we're focused on trying to detect those same kinds of targets, but can we make it happen in 5 or 10 minutes?
Right.
That's the speed at which, particularly for the Department of Defense, right? If you think about how
Mhm.
quickly one needs to react to those things, you don't have
You don't
days
have
or
10
hours.
days. Yeah, you don't have 10 days to make a decision. You need to know in 5 minutes
So
sometimes.
that's where some of the
Right.
tools we've developed over close to 20 years of working on this technology, about now knowing how to work with proteins, and now going into sort of like more sophisticated and new techniques like engineering
Hmm.
proteins that just don't exist, and engineering new ways to kind of detect things and amplify their presence in real time, and develop chemistries that can either change color or develop a fluorescent signal. So we see a significant opportunity even beyond the immediate opportunity that exists for FLIR in terms of thermal imaging and the value that adds. I think that there's additional, whether it's a field detection assay or things that maybe become
Right.
translational into that sort of clinical space or diagnostic space. I think that's uh, an area of pretty huge opportunity, and that's something that my people here in Pittsburgh are working on right now.
Absolutely. I mean, so obviously you get to have a lot of fun, and you've been there since 2006. So obviously, I mean, you love what you do. What's the best thing about being at FLIR's offices here in Pittsburgh, and working on the types of stuff you get to work on and the problems that you get to solve?
Yeah, obviously having a whole technology toolbox, because I work with other groups at other sites and they've
Hmm.
got different technology, right? So we really can kind of select the best tool for the problem. And I really like being on the cutting edge of innovation. And a lot of times in my job, that means going and partnering. So we do a lot of partnering with universities. We do a lot of partnering with small businesses. And it's really about trying to accelerate solutions. And so we don't always have all the answers with what technology comes from FLIR. And so we do a lot of partnering. And so some couple of poignant examples. We've got active partnerships on government contracts with both the University of Pittsburgh and with Carnegie Mellon. We work with we've worked with at any point in time on the order of maybe half a dozen different small businesses in Pittsburgh. We have a couple more things coming up that we'll be doing with some other companies that I'm really excited about. We try to sort of keep it local where we can, and that's what's
yeah. I love hearing that. The fact that you're working, obviously, universities make sense, but also to work with private business here as well.
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean, it's really sort of understated how much technology there is here in Pittsburgh, and everybody knows about the computer science and software, AI and machine learning kinds of things that people are doing, and some of the big players that are here. And then you've got your autonomy industry with the self-driving cars and everything. So I think that's sort of what comes to mind when you think about Pittsburgh. But we're really finding a lot of other opportunities to work with companies that do a lot of material science, a lot in the biotech space. I think so. There's really sort of three parts to the answer, and we just covered the first in terms of what I like about coming to work.
Okay.
But secondly, is we do, we're really trying to use our technology to the fullest extent, particularly to support the DoD. And so while we focus on detecting chemical and biological weapons, we also will do a good bit of what I would call translational work. So learning how to work with enzymes, they've got a lot of other applications. So there's sort of, clinical assays, and there's protein therapeutics. And so one of the other things that we've done most recently that's really going to be significant is we figured out how to take an enzyme that the DoD wants to administer to people as what you would call a prophylaxis, basically something you could put in your body and it would stay in your blood circulation for a long time. And essentially, these are enzymes that break down nerve agents. And so if you got poisoned by a nerve agent, you could basically give somebody a shot of this stuff. And then for about 10 days at least, if they got poisoned by the nerve agent, the enzyme circulating in the bloodstream would break it down and make it non-toxic. And so essentially our soldiers would be protected on the battlefield, where if somebody attacked them with a nerve agent, it wouldn't matter, right?
It's not going to exactly. Oh, that is amazing. That's
so that's exciting, and we've partnered with a local small business, and again, this is sort of a polymer technology for doing this that came out of Carnegie Mellon.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we leveraged it to show that it could work with our DoD customers, and now we're transitioning that relationship to this small business that spun out of CMU, and they're going to go take it to market and hopefully someday win a really big DoD contract.
Yep.
And we'll be in a position where we've sort of seeded that and worked out some kind of licensing or royalty arrangement with that company.
Yeah.
Everybody wins, and most importantly, we're protecting the warfighters, and that's just really an amazing innovation when you think about it, to just be able to go and use the tools that we've developed over 15 or 20 years and be able to apply it to a different problem. And so I love looking for opportunities to do that. And I would tell you the third piece of why I like to come to work is we just have a very small but very, very determined and talented group of people that work at our site. So we've got people that we hired 15 to 20 years ago, and it's been a long road to get where we are, but you watch sort of these people grow into their careers.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Kind of realize the potential of the technology to its fullest, and then also the people to its fullest. So it's been amazing for me to manage so many of these people, to kind of watch them grow and as the technology's grown, right? And so we're now at a point where we've got some of these bigger acquisition programs that are really exciting for us, because it's kind of the carrot that we've been chasing for a long time. But I'm even more looking forward to the future, because where we're going to take things and be able to apply these to future detection of chemical and biological threats. But I just think there's an awful lot of other stuff that we're going to go do. And actually, we've got a number of exciting things coming up that we're negotiating contracts for now. So it's a little unfortunate that things didn't happen a little faster, but
Yeah, no worries. That's why we need to have you back on, because at some point I want to hear about these things.
yeah, no,
I find all this work so amazing.
in a month or two's time, we're going to have, you know, a plurality, so two or
Okay.
three or maybe more of really exciting announcements to make about some new things coming online for our government work that I'm really would love to come back and tell you
Of
more about.
course. No, I want the update. You said plurality of things, so that sounds very exciting to me. Many things are coming down the road. What a cool, fascinating company. And you know that it's got Pittsburgh presence here based on Agentes back in the day. I think is just absolutely amazing. I'm so glad I got to tell this little sliver of FLIR's story without a doubt. Jeremy, cool stuff, man. I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It's really nice to be with you today and get to talk about this. It doesn't take a lot of arm twisting to get me to
Yeah, I love
brag
it.
about particularly just the cool stuff we do and the people here that are so invested in you know doing this work, and it really is. You have to be super motivated. It's a really, you know, technologically you know, stressful environment sometimes to be able to
Of course.
deliver these things for the
Yeah.
government. But it really, if we didn't have the culture we did, and I really think that's another reflection on just how Pittsburgh is, right? It is a gritty town, and people work hard, and people want to innovate, and people are proud of what they do. And so just to have, you know, a real small group of people that
Hmm.
are Pittsburgh natives and doing this, right? And it's a nice just reflection on um, where we're from. I don't know if we'd have the same situation if we were anywhere else but Pittsburgh.
I would agree. That makes a great point. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be an easy task when your vision is to be the world's sixth sense. So we'll leave it at that. Jeremy, you are the best. You and your work and your team's work, that's what's making Pittsburgh proud, man. Simple as that. Thanks for being part of this today. You are the best.
Thanks, Jonathan.